Greetings, friends of the internet, and welcome back to Legendary Tabletop. I'm Greg, your host, and a few weeks ago, I was lucky enough to attend a Mordheim anniversary tournament, and lately, I've also been playing in a local Mordheim league at the famous Chicago landmark, the Dice Dojo. Now, be that as it may, one of the things I've started to notice is what really makes a great piece of Mordheim terrain. There are many factors, I think, that we need to consider when playing the game of Mordheim, and also creating cool terrain that we could use in the game, but also maybe use in other games like maybe Dungeons and Dragons, Frostgrave, Warhammer, that sort of thing. So today, we're going to rack our brains and create what might be the most magnetic, the most modular, the most unique. Well, no, it's not. Everybody's built stuff like this in their hobby channels. But anyways, we're going to do it our way. So without further ado, let's get to the build.
All right, moving into voiceover land and getting the sketchbook out. So what I'm thinking with this tower is that there will be a whole side of the runes that are going to be basically exposed, and there is an interview online that I saw a few years ago with the creator of Mordheim, Mr. Thomas Piernin, and he talks about how in Warhammer, one of the things that was really frustrating to him was all the terrain was closed and you couldn't go inside and play inside the buildings, and that was part of the inspiration for Mordheim, was being able to play in all parts of the building here. So I'm thinking levels here, and I'm thinking all areas of the building, maybe except for the bottom or one, are going to be totally exposed with lots of windows and places for our warbands to jump in and out and shoot each other, and all of that Mordheim debauchery. And I'm starting with some nice XPS foam here, and I'm using a little archway that I had carved to be my template for all the other archways. I want to create all these sort of wide doorways that are arched in order to create a lot of different spaces for models to move in and out, and then also for my big sweaty man hands to also move in and out. And using a nice fresh box cutter blade here and some of this inch thick XPS foam, which is my favorite because it sort of is always the right thickness for little 28mm wall buildings. And then I'm going to create these sort of like pillbox windows here too as well. And then I'm sort of starting to create some of the levels and imagine how this whole piece is going to fit together. So I want it to be modular as well. And as I have participated in many Mordheim games at this point, I think the key for terrain is versatility, and for Mordheim also height, so that we can play multiple games. And the idea is that this tower can be one piece together, it can be two separate pieces that maybe you put a ladder in between, and also if you wanted to, you could take all four pieces and separate them and have a total part of the board basically covered. Maybe, this is one of the first pieces that you're going to build for your board, so that you can kind of create different scenarios and not be bored. Hope you like that pun. So moving on to the sort of different levels of the tower here. Now I built a little staircase for that bottom, and then I'm gonna put a bunch of these sort of trap doors in the other places in the staircase in order for models to be able to in-game travel upwards and downwards. And then here's that bottom level. I'm gonna leave that inside sort of I'm gonna leave that not accessible. I'm gonna have a door there, but I want to put some windows and some granny grating in there so that later at some point I can place some lighting in there. A lot of the new pieces that I've been making for my Mordheim board have not lights built into them, but places to put little tea lights, places to put little lights in. So I think wiring up little foam pieces to light up is a little bit too much. We're not trying to make a little Christmas village over here, though that would be kind of cool. Mordheim Christmas village, probably I'm gonna set that up in my house. But just keeping it simple is my motto. So moving on to the details here with a little ballpoint pen, I'm going to just get in the zone here, put on a little podcast, and put on a little music, that sort of, jam into the tunes, put on some classic rock, podcasts. What are you guys listening to? What podcasts are you listening to these days? Recommend me something good, and put it in the comments below. And so just getting going here with the bricks, little bricks and bricks. My brickwork is feeling good. My hand is feeling very strong. I just a couple weeks ago did a whole board in these bricks, a 4x4 board, so my brick muscle is feeling jacked. And here is a finished piece, and here is that tall, kind of like the tower at the top here, and we've carved a little bit into the sides. I had a little toothpick to kind of stick together where everything was going to go, and I've got all that brickwork finished. We've put all sorts of brick layers, brickwork into the staircases as well. And then here's some of that granny grating that I'm going to glue in these windows so that the windows are kind of transparent, so later I can put some of that lighting situation in there. And then I've also put some pillars, and I've used the ballpoint pen to carve the wood for the bottom, and that'll be a nice little foundation for our modular Mordheim ruins. There you go, I said it. Now, got the caulking here, a little bit of latex caulking, and I like to use this. I thin it down with a little bit of water, and I like to use that to thin the gaps and to spread all over the terrain piece in order to basically create some durability. That foam, when you transport your pieces to the game store for games or your friend's house, or just even storage on the shelf over the years, the foam can kind of etch away and be, dinged, so to speak. It can receive dings, and the caulking can ding-proof and make your pieces a bit sturdier, and with the combination of some varnish can keep them going for years and years and keep them free of deterioration from those sweaty Dorito and Cheeto fingers of all the nerds who will play games on them. And you can see here I spread the caulk thin enough to not obscure the detail, but thick enough to provide a bit of protection to the edges and to also hide some of the gaps. And you can kind of see how thin that is. Just a little bit of water. You don't want to go raw dog with the caulking. You want to thin it out a little bit. Thin it a bit, as they say. Thin it out. And it's looking nice. It's looking schmeckety. It's starting to look like something. These little runes. And I was racking my brain, and I didn't want to do it, and I said, I'm gonna do it, guys. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make something magnetic. And, there's a lot of terrain builders on YouTube here, and they do a great job of doing the magnetics. I am like kindergarten magnets. So I'm using an old trick here where I'm kind of lining up the piece where I want it to line up, and then I have a little paint stick here in my right hand with a little black paint, and I'm going to dab the spots where I'm going to place the magnets, and I'm trying very careful not to move the piece from where I'd placed it before. I'm kind of just tilting it so I can kind of sneak that paint in there and then pressing it down. And then the idea is that the paint dabs go to each side. Oh, and voila, you got it. And then you know where to place your magnets. Now, if you get them in the right polarity, that's up to you. You might mess one up. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I won't tell you. I won't tell you. But you can see I put the magnets in here. I got them on the top and the bottom. And I'm just holding them in with some hot glue. And I tried two at first. That was a little bit flimsy, so I ended up adding a third on this bottom piece, but it ended up working out really well. And then after everything had dried, I did go back with some more of that caulking to hide the magnets in case we separate these pieces and use them as their own either dungeon rooms or runes for our D&D game, something different than maybe just Mordheim. You can see here all the magnets are in place. And the nice thing about the magnets too is they're strong enough, kind of like whacking your hand while you're grabbing your little guy trying to get some warp stones for your game. Magnets are kind of strong enough that you're not gonna shatter the piece off the top here. And then here I am using some coffee stir sticks and some tacky glue with a little jewelry chain to create these little trap doors that are going to be a little detail for like a little place in which the models can travel up and down the runes of the tower, or if maybe we're using this in the modular sense, we're using it for a dungeon, then maybe it's the top secret entrance to the dungeon, that sort of thing. But we need a little place for our lads to move up and down the tower. And you can see here just a couple little of these coffee stir sticks and planking them up. And I'm going to just use a little bit of glue to glue those to each level. So each level, except for the top, has a little entrance and exit way, and then dabbing a little piece in the middle and dropping a little jewelry chain on there. And then I also created a little door here for the bottom. After that dries, I'll kind of clip those pieces off and make that look a little bit less ridiculous. And we're gonna have a quick break here and talk about something else for a sec.
Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick second and talk about something very exciting coming to the world of Legendary Tabletop. Now, you all know this channel as a place where we talk about tabletop games, things that are related to fantasy and sci-fi, Dungeons and Dragons, Mordheim, Warhammer, that sort of thing, one-page rules, that sort of thing. But I have also been a big fan of science fiction my whole life. And a few years back, I actually started to work on my own science fiction IP, or intellectual property, as you might have heard. And I wrote 2 different novels to start to explore the lore of this world that I wanted to create and eventually turn into a really cool tabletop war game with its own miniatures, its own terrain, its own special rules and rule books, that sort of thing. But I thought that getting the lore really worked out before all this goes forward and we start working on videos related to that game here on the channel, that the lore is the most important thing. So we have these two novels that I have written, and the first one, Apex Outsider Worlds, and it has a sequel, book 2, so to speak, Apex Exodus, and this is a science fiction epic space fantasy novel that is inspired by things like Dune, Hyperion, Star Wars, Games of Thrones, and of course inspired by a lifetime of playing Warhammer, Warhammer 40k, Mordheim, and the like. So I will leave a link below to Amazon, where you can buy both paperback and Kindle versions of these books. And it's a great way to support me and support the channel. And it's very exciting for me to finally put it out there. So thanks for watching my little spiel, and back to the video.
Alright, and thank you for listening to my little commercial. And here I am getting ready for painting, and I am painting, and we're using a nice mix of some black house paint with PVA glue and a bit of varnish here. And after I let the caulking mixture and the tacky glue cure from installing those little trap doors, I will apply this in about 2 layers in order just to seal everything, make everything nice, and also give us a base, an easy base in which to paint our terrain. And a lot of people paint miniatures from either a white or a black base paint. I feel like terrain is always the best with a black paint of primer. And here you see I've let it dry and it's looking nice. It's starting to kind of look like something. All those weird colors and tones of all the different materials that are combined together are making something. Got some miniatures in the background that I'm working on too. I got a couple additions to my Witch Hunters Warband, my Mordheim games, and also some Soulblight Grave Lords. Can't say that. Soulblight Grave Lords. Try to say that 3 times. Soulblight Grave Lords. Soulblight Grave Lords. Soulblight Grave Lords. Alright. We did it. And now we get to talk about the colors. So I have a part of my Mordheim board is this sort of like teal. And I have this paint job on several of my builds, on the Mordheim Cathedral, on the Mordheim Graveyards, and it's a nice sort of variation. One of my favorite colors. I think it just looks beautiful. Reminds, some people have commented before that it reminds them of the 80s, of the toys of the 80s. And I took a little piece here, a little Stormcast Eternal shield here that says Sigmar on there to kind of like make a little lore, a little story to the building, and place that on the side. And so we're starting with that base coat, and then I'll add a little bit of that diluted green to sort of create a little bit of sort of muck and yuck and moss, that sort of thing. Then we'll come back with a lighter teal or seafoam green, whatever it is in your universe, and do a sort of downward brushing to kind of create sort of the illusion of light. And then I'm using, of course, a brown for those trapdoors, for those plankings on the side here. Here you can see I've taken a little bit of this green and I'm just diluting that so that it's just not too strong. And though it appears very strong here, I always tell everybody on these videos that when I am applying the paint when it's wet, it's going to seem much bolder, much more strong, but once it dries, it's going to be very subtle. And in the end too, we are going to do a wash to sort of blend everything and kind of make everything work together. And then here I'm taking a lighter shade of the teal. If you don't have something like pre-mix like this, you can just add, you know, a little bit of white, that sort of shade, and then I'm going to brush downward to create the illusion that light is shining. I'm going to focus on the edges and some of the surfaces where the models would be walking, and then I will let that dry, and then I'm going to hit some of these pieces here on the side. Then I had this little shield, this Sigmar shield with a little bit of copper. And I'm also going to put some of this copper in the windows on the base there, so not too much, but I want to match some of the terrain that I've built here on my terrain board, my Mordheim terrain board. So I have a little section of the board, as I've mentioned, that has this sort of teal and copper theme to it, and just gonna not totally cover that. I'm gonna sort of overbrush that. I want a lot of the paint to just sort of hit the edges. I want the dark spots to remain in the crevices. And then I'm gonna take some glue here and hit some of the surfaces like the corners, some of the spots where the models will walk, and I'm gonna hit that with my fall leaf mixture, which is sawdust taken from the wood shop outside, and I color that in different batches. I color some of it red and brown and orange, and then I let all that dry. I mix it together and I create this sort of like fall blend, and I use that for a lot of my Mordheim board, though it's colored to be very bright, so that I can kind of alter it as I go, as I use it. And then for my Mordheim board, what I do is I apply it before I apply the wash. So when I do the last step, which is the wash, I can darken those leaves, which you will see in the final footage here. And you can see here, that's that little mixture, and you can kind of do that all sorts of different colors. You know, flock can be expensive, and I have like a green mixture, like a brown mixture, like a desert mixture, like a jungle mixture, and it looks very bright right now, but we're going to dye it down with the wash. And the wash is, you know, your basic wash, you know, black, brown ink, medium, washing up liquid, and a little bit of water. And once the wash is applied and the varnish is sealed, that will conclude our modular magnetic Mordheim runes.
All right, friends, and once again, that concludes another really fun Mordheim build. Modular runes that you could use for a multiple of situations, a multiple of different versions that you could set up the runes into, and lots of little shooty spaces, climby spaces for our models to get involved in some tabletop drama. Now, if you have watched this far, thank you. If you have subscribed already, thank you. If you haven't subscribed, we may have beef, but if you liked what you seen here today and maybe you want to check out some other stuff, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Now, without any further ado, you know what time it is. We're going to roll that beautiful beat footage!